We're at an exciting point today in Mesillas Yesharim. We've hit call it a halfway point, not in the chapters or the information in terms of headlines, but we've come to the wrap-up of the midas of Nikias, of cleanliness, as they call it. But all we've covered so far is Zehiras, Zerizas, and Nikias. Right? That's it, the three. There's 12 steps, 10 to 12 steps, depending on how you look at it, in the Mesillas Yesharim outline. Right? In the 26 chapters, we're in chapter 12, which is the way to acquire Nikias, cleanliness, as the wrap-up of what we've seen so far. We went through all these various midos of Nikias. Right? Whether it was anger, whether it was sinner, whether it was jealousy, whether greed for money, right? Taivas, for food, for sex. All these things we talked about in the Nikias. We're now about to wrap up called the umbrella of Nikias, of what really is the overriding factor for all of these areas we talked about. I saw this morning, in preparing for Shir and last night, and wrote it down in my Heshbon Nefesh on the cover, the following inscription. From Mesillas Yesharim, inspiration is a tremendous thing. You have to be inspired to do things in life. You have to be excited. You have to have slavas. You have to work hard. Inspiration, the Mesillas Yesharim says, is of no avail if one lacks knowledge of what is permitted and what is forbidden. Because you got to study. It's a veheter of the Torah. You got to know what you can do, what's permitted and what's forbidden. And it says you must constantly study Torah law on the side of what to do and what not to do. And secondly, you'll constantly have to study ethical instructions on midos development of who we are and what we are and how we act. With those, then, if you don't, you will have nowhere to direct your inspiration properly. And then inspiration is very nice, so you're really excited. But are you following the right thing? That touched me very, very deeply. That's really the summary of what we're going to talk about today. Is the inspiration that we have, the excitement that we have. If it's not directed, so what? So it's excitement. It in itself is not a meter of quality unless it's used for the right purposes. So we're in chapter 12, in the Ramchal's book of Mesillas Yesharim, and say, Hine, the emsa'i ve'amiti liknos haknios, the nikios. The true meaning by which to acquire, by which to acquire the trait of nikios, guess what? We go back, it's all a circle. Guess where it leads back to? Who hismadas Negriya, the Divrei Hachamim, Zachron Lebracha, is constant study of the words of our Torah sages of blessed memory. That's where we start at the beginning of the book, what he said to us. We've gone now through tremendous amount of information and chomer and exercises when it comes to Zehiras and Zrizas and Nikias. But the message came out to be the same thing. The essence of this is for every Jewish person. And it's not extreme. That's to learn Torah. That's where we're going to find it. Personally, I found that my life has changed because of doing this. Just on what Reb David started, talked about months ago, right? In doing this and going to the Sefer, it was just reading it and going through it. You're not going to do it without it. It's not going to happen magically. This is a proven, tried technique. The chisaron in it for humanity and for people is everybody wants a fast hit and wants to see results immediately. It does not happen. It's an impossibility. I mean, you can get a birth. God can give anybody a gift. Nothing's impossible. I shouldn't say that. But in the overall picture of what we're talking about here, it's constantly pursuing, right? Torah study in both Issa Veheta, talking about in prohibited Shulchan Aruch, in working on ourselves, in learning the struggle of the learning of the Gemara and the Mishnayot, and the study of Sifrei Midos, constantly working on it, constantly filling yourself. It's like if you run around with good people, right, you become a good person. You run around bad people, it's inevitable you become a bad person. That's what they're telling us. The constant accompaniment of the study of the words of our Torah sages. Im ba'inyanei hachalichos, both in subjects of Torah law, including the learning of our Ian and our Mishnah and our Gemara, the inyanei hamusarim, and in subjects of ethical instruction, Musa Sedorim. Ki hine ache shekeva his ames etzel ha'adam, for consider, after a person has already confirmed for themselves, you believe in this, you've confirmed it, right? The chovos, the commitment, the responsibility, what's the better word for chovos? The obligation. Hanakiyas and Sarek Bo, the obligation of acquiring Nikiyas, the necessity of mastering this trait. You believe in that, you know it's true. Akesh Shekiva, he sieg his hirus v'hazrizus, which will come after he's already attained the traits of zahirus and zarizus. And at this particular point, I have a question. Do you go back and should we start all over again? Because that's really what it's about. It's chazor and staying involved with it all the time. Or do we go forward, which I think that, if I asked Reb, the first thing I thought about was Reb David. What's Reb David going to say about this? I think he's going to say, let's go forward and go through the whole thing once, because that's really, he said, to look, to go and get the whole scope of it. We're going to have to go back again, and again, and again, and again. It's incredible. I can't believe it myself. I'm so bewildered and grateful for what's happening to myself. And it's not like I made a big move. I made a move this much. It didn't matter. The question is the direction of where I'm going. I can see improvement myself. I can see a better human being now than when I started this book. And not even for any of the pu'ulas I did, which I've also been working on, but just for being involved with this all the time, thinking in these terms all the time. You can't be involved with this without wanting to improve yourself. It's impossible. You can't study this and just ignore it. It gets to you. It fills you. And therefore, b'man nis'asek b'darchei nekiyanamim ve'yisrachek mifasidechem, by having engaged in the methods of acquiring them and having distance, right? Yemafsidehem, distance yourself from things that distract from them, of getting zahirus and zrizas and nikiyas, by just constantly pursuing them and trying to stay away from the things that are hefsedim, that are pushing you away from them. Hine lo yesharu lo atar ikuvi liknos and nikiyas. There will at this point no longer remain before you any hindrances of acquiring nikiyas. Now this is a stage, that's why I have to say, whether you go back to the zoo, that was if you're pursuing Zahirus and Zrizus. You have to keep pursuing them. Zahirus, we said, was doing Cheshbon and Nefesh. Zahirus is trying to eliminate all the negative things that we're doing and eliminate things that are not according to the will of God, as we understand it. And Zrizus is trying to get alacrity, to run to do things faster, to do the will of God faster. These are disciplines. And without the disciplines, I find that there's no movement. You got to do it. But the truth is, and he says, the proof of the pudding is in doing them. I can sit here and tell you them all day long, and I can bring a chorus behind me. I can bring Adis about it. It's true, but it's not going to help, because you say, I want to see it. There were young boys in here yesterday from the yeshiva that takes care of men that are off the derech, and I was forced to say, it's not a quick reward that we're going to get. You have no choice. You got to do the work. You do the work, it works. So the only proof is in the pudding. Means if you do the work, you get the proof. Nobody can give it to you. No, it's absolutely impossible. You can see the result in somebody's doing. You can look at the sages of the generation. You can see people who have done this, what the result is. You have to want that. But even all the want in the world isn't going to help if you don't put the work in. Desire alone is not enough. Desire alone can only be desire enough to want to do the work according to the dictates and the teachings and the direction given to us by someone like Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. He says, I got the roadmap for you, follow it. And if you'll just follow it, you'll see results. And you only know that when you follow it and you see the results that he was telling you the truth. But there's nobody can convince you. Who says he's telling the truth? Well, if you don't try it, you'll never know. And he says, Eila yedias hadidukim asher b'mitzvah, except by gaining knowledge and details of the commandments. You got to learn, if you're doing the kiyas and the commandments, what does that mean? That you get down to you start off on the big thing. I'm putting on my tefillin, I'm saying Shema, I'm wearing tzitzis, I'm doing mezuzah. Whatever it is, whatever the commandment is, he's telling us clearly one thing. You got to keep going over and over and over it again, and suddenly you see the refinement of the mitzvah. You see the little points that weren't there before, you understand them. And that brings you to a higher level. It's not necessarily conscious awareness of what's going on, but something happens in you. You suddenly feel yourself getting cleansed. It's like you're taking a mikvah with time in the learning. Kedei, why? Yochel hazahir be'kulam, so that he can be scrupulous in adhering to all of them. And that's our job. And that's what we're doing this for. Because we wanted, God says, if you heed the 613, you will come to the place that I promised. It's a formula. It's not that you'll understand why, but you don't have to. I understand why, and I'm telling you, this is what you have to do. And if you do it, it's inevitable and unavoidable. It's a force. It's mukhrach. You will come to the place that you're desiring and dream about. If you want to become a better human being, if you want to stay just who you are, there's nothing to do. There's nothing to talk about. This is only for people that want to become qualitative human beings and want to fulfill the will of God in the world. They want to fulfill what their potential is in this world. To come to the state of an ever-receding horizon called perfection. But it's working for it. I want to be looked at as a paradigm of what God wants in this world. I don't want to be this animal behavior. I want to come to my angelic self. Only in the face, because I want to please God, because that's the will of God. How does God have quote-unquote happiness? When a human being fulfills his tachlis, what he was put here for, that brings joy to the Father, that brings joy to our Father in heaven. Not like joy in anthropomorphic terms, we call it joy. God created us for this. How can he not find, whatever way he expresses satisfaction and joy, how can he not find it when you're fulfilling what he put you here for? If you don't want that, then there's nothing to talk about here. You're here because you want that. You want to elevate yourself. You want to become that master, that model of what humanity was put here for. You want to make the tikkun to bring God Eden back to the earth, to see a place that was built and is established on light, a place that's established on truth, on a place established on love, true love, on a place that's established on selflessness, on caring more about others more than yourself. If these are your ideals, this is the hard work that's required to do it, but you keep immersing yourself in it. And to get to do the mitzvahs properly, that you have to keep studying according to the Ramchal. So he's telling us right now. The Ramchal explained in chapter 10 in Zahirus. Zahirus being right is to do cheshbon, to watch yourself and to check yourself out and see what you're doing, is itself the first stage of Nikiyas. You have to be aware of yourself before you can start cleansing yourself up. And it is he's a rezis, a alacrity, as the stepping stones in the kiyas. You start moving, going towards the things that you start determining, that's the right thing to do. I'm running to do that. I'm not just going to swag, I don't want to miss an opportunity. The rezis, it seems to be, is like grabbing every opportunity. There's no kicking back all the time. Of course you have to rest. You have to find what your balances are. But when something comes your way and is presented to you, right, you overcome your fears. It's the right thing to do. You run for it. When one habituates himself in the traits of Zahirus and Zrizus, in other words, you habituate yourself, though, keeping your eye on watchfulness, I'll call it for Zahirus. And Zrizus, alacrity to run to do what you're doing, and you habituate yourself. The more you do, then the more you become habituated, like anything else, whether it's a good habit or a bad habit. A good habit works like a bad habit. We know a bad habit, if you keep doing it, it becomes second nature to you, and it's hard to break it. Same thing by a good habit. If you keep doing it, it becomes second nature to you also. You stop thinking about it a little bit. Thereby attaining basic purity from avera, from sin, and nurturing your love of your Creator. And that love of your Creator isn't like that you're looking to love your Creator. I'm just telling you right now from the experience since we started this. My love of my Creator is much greater right now, just as an offshoot, a result of doing this. I can't put my finger on what's causing it. But I'm following the formula as best I can, and I'm starting to see a love of beauty in the creation, much greater than I ever saw before. Not in the fireworks kind of effect of it, though, by the way. In the day-to-day life that I'm leading starts showing me more and more and more and more and more. This Creator, how great this Bria is and what He's given us it is. And we will gradually free ourselves from the lure of physicality and strive for spirituality around the clock until we attain complete cleansing from improper desire for a trace of sin, which is the essence of Nikias. Again, I will read that. It's an important definition. Complete cleansing from an improper desire for or trace of sin, which is the essence of Nikias. That's the purity of doing the will of God and fulfilling His will. He desires no sin from us. And we slowly start getting, we want to look at it and goes, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with that. Not because you're going to will it. It becomes second nature to you. The more you follow the light, the more you follow the purity, the more you want to stay away from it. The bigger you feel as a human being, the humbler you feel. Also, this isn't a matter you go, oh, am I doing great in this? I only have to say it in shears. I say it in shear here because it's just a fact that's happening. We're so far away from what we're looking for, but we're on the path and we're moving in that direction. That itself is a tremendous miler in this world. Just to say, in this world of schmutz that's piled up sky high, literally, okay, that we're trying to attain to a level of clarity and purity and cleanliness that the Creator has asked us for, is an incredible milah. Thus, mastering Zahiris and Zrizus is the basic way to acquire Nikias. Nevertheless, if one does not know what is expected of them, inspiration alone will not enable him to react to reach his goal. You don't know where you're on. Oh, man, so what? Do you know how to do the mitzvahs? Do you know how to work on yourself? Do you know how to stay away from something? You got to know what you're doing, what you're going for. To use that inspiration, many of us are inspired. Many of us have a great Slavas to run to do things, but you got to know what you're running to. You can't be running to affairs. In order to harness our inspiration for concrete action, we must learn the details of the mitzvahs so that we can be scrupulous. That's really Nikias what he's talking about, is scrupulousness in doing the mitzvahs. That's that extra step we're taking right now. You're keeping refining, to look to do the mitzvahs more as the will of God, as it was given to us through the written and the oral law, and the teachings of the Shulchan Aruch, the preciseness of doing exactly. That's like tuning up the fine machine. We have a high standard. It's not the word I'm looking for. We have a tremendously refined machine here called our bodies and our souls that work together. And our job is to tune them so they're harmonized, so that they can run at maximum efficiency. This is done through the acceptance of and the fulfilling of the mitzvahs, both the positive commandments to do and the lavim to stay away from. Even the slightest trace in the lavim of any kind of sign of an avera of a sin. This fine-tunes our machines to be able to perform the will of God, to come to the place that we dream about, at least some of us dream about. I hope everybody dreams about it. There's a whole world out there that doesn't even have a concept that this exists. There's nothing that feels greater, and there's no reward greater than God's payment for us. And we're not doing it for that, but it happens to be a natural side effect. If you do this, there's just natural reward comes in this feeling of fulfillment, of a feeling of a purity inside a person's self, a feeling of wholeness, a feeling of knowing where you're going and what you're doing. Things that you wish for your whole life come as a natural consequence, even though you're not looking for them per se anymore. Looking through the will of God, that comes as a natural offshoot, as the result, as the reward for these things. The Mishnah Brewer in Hilchos Shabbos says, makes this point. Even if a person is inspired to observe the laws of Shabbos, I just want to keep Shabbos. Please, I want to keep Shabbos. And review them constantly, you will inevitably transgress on them. You can't help it. There's too many details. You have to study and study and study. not as a drudgery, as a gift, as a tremendously inspiring activity to slowly trying to perfect something that you're doing. There's no greater reward in this world. There's no greater avoder in this world. Is working towards perfection of something, to get it right, to fine-tune the machine, no less than if you had a high quality, a high standard race car. To get it tuned perfectly, to get it on the edge of perfection. That's our goal. So the pleasure of doing it again and again and again and coming off and making it better and better and better. The result is the Maisa comes out to be a higher expression of the will of God. But the internal feeling in the person of satisfaction when we work like that is inexplicable. There's no terms that can carry it to the people, to carry it to anybody except if you try and do it. Inspiration, as I mentioned before, this was my note on my Heshbon of Nefesh, inspiration is of no avail if one lacks knowledge of what is permitted and what is forbidden. The Mesillas Yesharim continues. Ba'al Kain, therefore, hine tzarich lo lehechreach yedias halachos al bur yam. It is absolutely necessary for us to have a thorough knowledge of Torah laws. L'da'as anfei ha-mitzvos ad heichan heim megiyim, to know how far the branches and subdivisions of the commandments reach. Because what are all the parameters of it? Not just in the heart of it, I'm going to do this. How deep is Borah? I remember in my early years in yeshiva, learning with Rev. Gershon Fish and myself, we were studying the laws of Borah. We were on it for 4 months. How could it be? We still were asking questions, and to this day we still have questions. It's one of the most difficult topics there is, separating the bad from the good from the bad, and all the implications of it are masses. But that's the gift that we've been given, the joy and pleasure to know that when you pick that sock out of the drawer, or you pick out that food, that you're doing it according to the will of Ratzon of Hashem. It's inexplicable, again, the feeling of satisfaction, the feeling of closeness to Hashem. But you have to know all of the permutations around this. It's not a simple issue. It's not black and white, so to speak. V'gam lefisha ha'shicha mitzuya devorim hadakim ha'ela. Additionally, since forgetfulness is common with the finer points of the mitzvah, every morning here in Yeshiva Rabbi Akiva we learn Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. I can't believe how many details are doing this every day for an hour. Everybody's learning halacha every day. You just come to realize how many details are. You go back 2 days later to the thing and you realize you're learning a whole new topic again. Why? Because the kudim of the details, the diktuk of it, so to speak, the carefulness of it is overwhelming. Every detail has to be learned, reviewed, and most important, remembered to be carried out. V'hinei tatztarech lo hasmadas hanekiya basfarim umeva'arim ela diktukim. We will require constant study of the books that clarify these details. Not enough once, twice. You got to keep going. Torah is infinite. You're talking about the blueprint of the creation. If you go and have a machine, you go and get a simple Lego set, right? A silly example. You take a Lego set, try to put it together by missing a few of the details of it. You're not going to get what you started off. You're not going to create that thing. You got to follow there every step where every piece goes. The same thing by doing a mitzvah. It has steps and pieces that have to be put in place. And if they're not put in place, it just doesn't work. Ulaman chadash v'sichlo zechirasam, to continually refresh recollection in your mind. You forget. Natural tendency. The azvada yis oreh lekayim kamam. Then, with comprehensive knowledge and constant review, you will be, again, it builds your enthusiasm. Imagine knowing how to do something right. There's nothing greater in the world, perhaps. than knowing how to do something right and wanting to do it? Think about it. When you got it down right, boy, you're powerful. You got big muscles, and you love doing it. And again, not in the sense of guyver, me, in the sense of a feeling of accomplishment, in the sense of a feeling of perfection. You're like a concert pianist. There's pleasure. Those fingers are running up and down the ivories. A guitar player, those fingers are running up and down the frets on the guitar. And every note is pure and sweet. That's what your micing feel like. There's just an inner feeling of like the vibrations of the heart are all sounding on the actual harmony of the single note. That's a goal in life that most people don't even know they're looking for, but when they get it, they go, wow. We've been given the secret through the Mesillas Yesharim for Reb Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. Has tried to give us the roadmap of how to get to those places. Those are rewards. There's no money that can buy that reward. There's no gift that you could be given that would be equal to the satisfaction from that reward. The footnote over here says there are two ways of studying Torah, at least to prefer. There are two ways of the studying of Torah that leads to the fulfillment of the laws. That is Zahirus and ultimately to Nikias. Again, the fulfillment of the laws, that is to take yourself to being a Zahir, right? And to be careful and watchful, and then to become Naki, clean. The direct impact of Torah study is that it alerts a person to his obligations. You must keep learning. There's never enough hours in the day. You go to bed at night eventually. This is not something you're going to develop overnight. It starts happening. The more you learn, the more pleasure you have, the more you come to perfection, the more you feel, I say perfection qualifiably, whatever level you're at where you've achieved. You start wanting more and more and more because it tastes so good. It uses the finest spices and the finest herbs. You just know it's right. It becomes seductive. It becomes habitual. And you want it more and more. You know, the only way you can get it more and more is to keep reviewing and refining and right. And when you get to that level, right, there's not enough hours in the day. You go to bed at night feeling like, oh, if I only had a little bit more time, but I know I have to go to sleep or I can't function tomorrow. You start going to sleep at night wishing you could find another way to get a 36-hour day instead of a 24-hour day. Enabling yourself to be able to practice the inspiration you receive through these sources. An additional benefit, however, is that the Torah study itself, this is it, is a great source of inspiration. It turns from being drudgery and overwhelming to every line becomes a source of information. A source of information, a source of inspiration. Wow. That's how it fits in another piece. You ever do a jigsaw puzzle? 2,500 pieces. When you find that piece of the anchor that was missing on that great sailing ship, that just a deep breath taking and go, wow, I got it. That fits in. You ever put that piece in right when it fits? You go, whoa! That goes on 2,500 times. You find that piece on the border, right, that fits in. The Ramchal noted in chapter 5, if one applies himself to such study, the light of the Torah will automatically arouse one to do good and restore them to the proper path. Again, this is the Ramchal in chapter 5. If you apply yourself to study, I mean apply yourself. That means digging and studying and thinking and working on it. And sometimes feeling like you're never going to get it because it's just too hard. And then when it's just hard to me, one of the most mysterious things in the world is how I can read something. It makes no sense. I said, there's no way this is going to make sense. And not being able to have that feeling 3 days later when it finally comes together, I can't believe I never understood what this said. It's obvious what it said.
The problem with that is you read it again, it doesn't make any sense.
That's the next
And then
level.
you do it again, it makes sense, but it's another different sense.
It's a different sense. The whole process, but sometimes I've gotten to that place. I learned something, it made no sense. I said, this is ridiculous, I cannot do it. I was discouraged, I was frustrated. I've put my work into it, feeling like I had no brain on my shoulders. And suddenly it all got to pull together a bit and it made sense to me. And there was no answer. So how could I not have understood? And I tried to take myself back to the place where I didn't understand. It's impossible at that particular point. But that's how marvelous this experience is. But it takes work and it takes dedication. And he goes on to say, this inspiration is multifaceted. Toiling in Torah purifies the soul and refines it. That's just the toil part. Forget about any answers or understanding anything. Osek the Torah, right? What does it do? It purifies. It makes tahor, the soul. It refines it. It makes it finer and finer and more sensitive. Exposing it to the sweetness of spirituality. Sweetness, he calls it, the Ramchal. Not my words. Sweetness of spirituality. To which it then envelops a taste. It develops its own taste. It has a tom that's sweet. Such toil also influences a person to develop a deeper inner bond to the mitzvahs. And determination to fulfill them even though they may be very difficult. That's even a greater drive to do them when they're difficult. To overcome, to be able to do them brings a sweetness that's inexplicable. One naturally becomes devoted not only to the particular mitzvahs whose laws he studies, but also to the mitzvah observance in general. For the rigorous study of even one area of halakha deepens one's appreciation of all the Torah laws, because if this one has it, everyone has it. And you can't deny that fact once you get involved. Thus, the constant review of halacha that the Ramchal proposes here, this is the footnotes, by the way, from our beloved translators and the one who gave us the Sefer Art Scroll, the Sora Press, right? Not only serves to inform the person how to attain Nikiyas, but also a catalyst to acquiring this trait. As was said by the Chazon Ish, Zichron Tzaddik Kadosh L'Bracha, the leader of the previous generation and a source of inspiration for all of us in the book of Munarim B'Tachon, chapter 3, reference 7 through 9. The constant review of halacha that the Ramchal proposes and the constant review of our learning not only serves to inform the person how to attain, right, but it's a catalyst. Without the understanding of how, it just brings you closer to the trait of Nikiyas, of coming to the state of cleanliness and perfection. The Ramchal goes on, in the previous chapter, the Ramchal, this is, again, their commentary for this is the Ramchal's words now, coming up, the Ramchal specified Nikiyas is necessary not only for action and mitzvahs, but for character traits. Did I move? Right? To acquire the dimension of Nikiyas, it's essential for one to read the ethical discourses. Now we're talking about the Mesillas. We're talking about books of Hasidus that talk about developing character. If anybody thinks Hasidus, well, that's cute, they're not you Muslims, poor, sad Muslims, right? Not happy Hasidic nicks. I would like to invite you to read the, what's it called, Noam Elimelech, the letter that he has at the end, the something katan. Remember it? Reb Wagensberg talked about it. I just blank right now. I'll get it for us to say what it is, but it's a letter of what the Hasidus expected of Hasidus. It's the same thing. You can call it Musa, you can call it Hasidus, you can call it whatever you want. Oh, Hasidus, I'll just dance my way over there, right? I'll sing songs and dance. No, it's not. The Selim Katan, I think it's called, right? It's in the back of the book of the Noam Elimelech. And it has 20 or 30 different disciplines that are required to gain to a Hasidus. First of all, before you start anything, you got to learn Kol Torah Kula. You got to learn all the halachas. It's not like, it's the same thing. The different names to the same path. All of them require, if we do not think that the Baal Shem Tov worked at the same level as the Vilna Gaon, and as Reb Noam Elimelech, and as Zusha, and as Reb Shach, and as the Belzer Rebbe, and all of these giants that we know we have around us, they can call them what they want. They all did basically the same word. Call a Torah cooler in learning, call a Torah cooler in halachas, positive commandments, negative commandments, Shulchan Aruch. eventually to come to the place where they studied and they learned, so they learned Kabbalah. They all put massive, their lives were dedicated Yom V'Layla to their learning. And learning the same things, whatever little unique way they had between them to find their way. The work they put in was massive, and they stayed on it Yom V'Layla. And this is what he's talking about. He says the same is true regarding cleansing oneself from negative character traits in order to acquire the dimension of Nikias, not only in your learning and doing your mitzvahs properly. How do you get yourself clean as a human being to be that Selam Elokim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu desires from us in this world? Muchrachas lo kurias memamre hamusa. It's essential for one to read the ethical discourses of the lekadmonim or laachronim of earlier or more recent sages. Earlier works he's calling about Pirkei Avos, the Mishnah on a person's personal, between a person and himself, on the Agadic portions of the Gemara, which talks about Maisim, of how people and how the great rabbis acted, as well as works of the Rishonim, he's calling them the Kadmonim, the early ones, the Chavos Levavos, the Shari Tshuva, where Baruch Hashem, Art Scroll now, Masorah Press has put out a similar translation of Mesillas Yesharim. They put out Shari Tshuva now is available, and I wouldn't be surprised if we'll see Chavos Levavos and all the other great Moshe Seifers coming out as time goes in this series to give us access to the teachings of our great sages with commentaries to open up the portals of what they're trying to say. Latter works would be, from today's perspective, he calls himself, the Ramchal, as a later one, the Mesillas Yesharim and other expositions, because they're Achronim. Instead of Tanayim in the time of Rashi, to the time of the Tur Shulchan Aruch, and to the 1500s, in the beginning of the period of Rav Yosef Karo, the Shulchan Aruch is called the Rishonim. And the Achronim from the time of Rosh of Karo and on until the present day. All these works are here to be studied. And just as the study of halachic codes enables one to gain nikiyas and mitzvahs, by familiarizing ourselves with the minute details of the laws that we need to scrupulously observe, so does the study of Musa, or the study of Hasidus enable. He does not say that, he's only talking about Musa here, but we'll say it. It enables one to gain nikiyas in character by educating one in the intricacies of human nature and interpersonal relationships. Again, what is the study of, whether you call it Musa or Hasidus? By educating a person in the intricacies of human nature. Who are you? How do you work? How do you react? How do you act? And interpersonal relationships, and how do you get along with people or don't get along with people, and how do you make it work? Study of Musa is also a potent motivational tool at every stage of spiritual growth. Here, however, the Ramchal does not refer to inspirational Musa, but to the practical aspects of cultivating good midos and attitudes. Again, here we're learning not about inspirational Musa, that's also very important. He's talking more about the practical aspects. The practical way you have to act and you have to behave to develop the good midos and to have good attitudes. This particular avenue of Musa is in prime importance in acquiring the trait of Nikias, is understanding the technicalities. Is there some tissues around? Maybe in my pocket. Look. Here he goes on to say, Ki pa'amim rabos. For many times, afilu ache sheyikba ha'adam atzmo liyos min ha'dakdakim ha'neki'im. Even after a person has firmly resolved to be among the meticulous ones who attain nikiyas, you made that commitment. Efshalo liye'es sham bafritim. It is still possible to make mistakes in certain details. Why? Mipnei shelo hegi'a yedi'aso behem. Because our knowledge did not encompass them well enough. We went through them. We understood it the best we could possibly do. This good mitzvah, well, excuse me. We didn't study the details of them. We got to go back and do it again. Because it's knowledge that encompassing ki ein adam no led hacham. Indeed, such errors are most inevitable. Why? We weren't born wise. The im efshar lo ledas es hakol. It's impossible to instinctively know everything. Some people have better instincts than others. It's true, but nobody has instinct to know it all, and therefore will slip. The source of Torah refers to siyata d'shmaya, granted to those who toil to the best of their ability, and this is a top secret and a major secret that's not a secret at all, but that's just the formula, I'll call it better yet. Those that toil to the best of their ability to acquire the knowledge necessary from the Kiyas or any other part of the Torah, the one who endows mankind with wisdom, the Rabbanu Shalom, enables us to perceive matters that are not discussed in written works. That's the siyata d'shmaya. You show your desire and your effort and put your full heart, shmach, behind what you're doing as best as you can. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is behind you. You show them the way that a man wants to go, a woman wants to go, Hashem will help them go that way. Similarly, the sages teach that a scholar's ability to correctly resolve obscure halakhic questions depends on siyata d'shmaya. You hear that all the time when you hear stories talking about the great halakhic authorities in the Avim, Beis Dinim. What happened? They don't know how they got what they got. It was siyata d'shmaya. A voice told them, how did you know to do that? How did you know that that woman can get married and all that? He says, once you put your foot out there, you took that responsibility. There was siyata d'shmaya. This is what we're talking about. And to close off, right? These are factors that detract from the kiyas. The first part of this, what do you call it? The way to acquire nikiyas. Now he's going to tell us, as typical of the Ramchal, when Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, in all his works, tells us what you have to do, how you get it, and then he always comes along and wants to tell us, these are the things you better be careful for. These are the booby traps that are in the way. These are the, right? So he says what? The end on mafside amida hazos. The fact is that impair this. Hine hein kol mafside hazahirus. The same as the factors that impair the trade of zahirus, which is the primary, the basic level of nikiyas, the 101, so to speak, as nikiyas saying be 301 or 401. Zahirus is 101. It's watching and getting all your things categorized in box. Listen to what he says. One, here they are. Preoccupation with worldly matters. I gotta have fun. I gotta do other things. I gotta take time out, whatever you do. But I mean, proper balance. The people get so preoccupied with worldly matters, they don't have time for this. So they're involved with those things so much that they're just not involved with this. 2, levity, taking it lightly. It doesn't mean, oh, I'm heavy. You don't get heavied out by it. But levity is not being heavied out. Taking it seriously is very, very important. Being grateful for it and finding your pleasure in it from the fact that you're dealing with Kedusha, you're dealing with holiness, you're dealing with awe, you're dealing with things that are light. And not taking it lightly. This is a serious matter that God's involved. We didn't create the world for... It's a God with a tremendous sense of humor and tremendously kind. It's not with levity. There's a purpose in this world. We have to catch that. Cynicism. Ugh, what a horrible meter. What a horrible trait. And a negative peer pressure. Man, what are you being so smart, Peter Pan? What do you always learn? Be careful, man. The people around you can be your worst enemies, unfortunately, if you don't be careful. Because they don't want to do it, so they'll take you apart to keep you from doing it. They'll make you into a fanatic and they'll call you every name in the book. It's just some of the reasons, answers, right? Preoccupation with worldly matters, levity, cynicism, and negative peer pressure. He said, those are 4 of the things that detract from the nikiyas. V'nosef aleihem. In addition to these, he says, Chisron habekius b'das hadinim or musarim. There's also a lack of comprehensive knowledge of Torah laws or ethical instructions. Moshe Kasafti, as I've written, Ukevar Amru Zichron Lebracha, as in this vein the sages of blessed memory have already stated in the Mishnah and Pirkei Avos, Lo Am Ha'oretz Chasid. An ignorant person cannot be pious. He can try as hard as he wants to be pious, right? To be the chassid, to come to the level of being a tzaddik and a chassid. It's not just something you figure it out. There's lots of teaching in the world about morality and all these other things, but people don't, you gotta have how to do it. It's not enough to want it. It's very nice that you want it, but the tools to obtain it, you gotta have the right size wrench, you gotta have the right size box wrench. Putting a 1/4 inch box wrench on an 1/8 inch bolt is not gonna take it out. It's a fact. You gotta have the right tools. And that's what this learning is about. And that's why it must be pursued. Ki mi shelo yeda im efshar lo la'asos, and the reason is obvious. For one does not know, one cannot perform. For one who does not know cannot perform. The footnote says, the Ramchal cited the Mishnah above in chapter 5, factors to detract from Zehirus, and he cites it again below in chapter 18, in the element of Hasidus and piety. Although the Mishnah states literally that an ignoramus cannot acquire the trait of Hasidus, the Ramchal apparently understands it to mean that such a person cannot even begin. It's not only that he can't, Hasidus already is Meshurah Sadin. You live to do the will of God, to please God in the world, and you go beyond what you have to do. In other words, there's a requirement, and then there's voluntary. You put your own effort in. You just want to see your Father in heaven happy. Just like a child, to please a parent, pushes themselves beyond themselves to do things that will make a parent happy. We want to make our Father in heaven happy that we're doing His will. And we just want to see the light that He's put into this world and potentially is here to illuminate it. Right? We want to see that happen. He says, not only not forget about that level. If you don't have this thing, you don't even know where to start. You can't even begin to climb the ladder that leads to Hasidus. Why? Since Torah knowledge is a basic necessity for even the earliest stages of Zehirus and Zerizus and the Kiyas. That was said by the Yeheskel son of Zaken Sadak Alek Lebracha. This learning and the Torah and what we're doing is necessary from step one. In whatever level we're at, to get ourselves, this is like being involved with good friends. Being involved with Torah is being involved with good friends. Good friends support you, good friends love you, good friends cover your flanks, good friends are pushing to do the same thing you are. Getting involved, there's a reason the communities went and separated themselves from the rest of the world. Not out of selfishness, Hashem, necessarily, and not out of being mean or cruel, not wanting to do anything, but you get pulled down if you're in a bad environment. You want to go to an environment that can help you to grow closer to God and doing His will. The Chain Amru, they also said in Kedushin, page 40b, Talmud Gadol Shemevi L'dei Ma'aseh, study of Torah is of primary importance because it brings one to performance. Learn to do. And when you're learning, you come to do. It just pushes you to that place. And there's never too much. Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, it's always there. It's always engaged. It's always ready for you, waiting for you. The purity of it, the goodness of it. It doesn't mean you ignore your responsibility of visiting the sick or accompanying the dead to the grave or making shalom bayis. You have to know what your balance is. The Rosh Yeshiva said many years ago, Rabbi Mordechai Goldstein, should live and be well, said, he said the definition of a Ben Torah wasn't somebody necessarily that sat 24/7 learning Torah, keeping Shabbos, of course, on the seventh day. The definition of a Ben Torah, like somebody who was a Torah Jew, was no matter what they were doing, some people have to work for Parnasa. There's no shame, and that doesn't mean you can't be a mentor. Mentor doesn't mean you have to do it around the clock. But your mind is always there in the moment that you have an opening, where you're not having to do another chiyuv. You're going back. Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam, it's like it engages immediately. You go back to it. There's a thirst to know more. There's a thirst to understand the blueprint, which is your primal self more, your physical self more, how this mechanism called you works. That's a Ben Torah. Not everybody can do it round the clock, but the Ben Torah wants to always run back to get back to that Torah, to get back to the blueprint, to study more, to understand himself better and the creation better, and improve the world that he lives in. That's a Ben Torah. The summary of chapter 12 of everything we just said, and we will now, this is the last step. The next step we're going to take is the trait of precious, which is abstinence, which is a quality, I'll read in a second that, because you should always never leave off at the end of something. You should start something in the next part in a minute. Once a person, this is the summary of Nikias, once a person has mastered Zahiris and Zerizus, Halavai, those words are big, but we've been through it. We have a little taste of it more. We're watching ourselves better. We're trying to run to do things better, B'ezrat Hashem. And is recognizing the necessity for Nikias to work on the details of it much more and really clean it up. That person will be inspired to acquire this trait, but he must strive to acquire through knowledge of the halachic details of various mitzvahs. One, that's on the mitzvah side, as we say, and the ethical fine points of character development. Those are the two things, the details of the mitzvahs and the ethical points of character development. This necessitates constant study and review. That's the vessel. That's the tool that you have to get to come to that place of understanding the details of the mitzvahs and the halachas and the fine points, the ethical fine points of character traits, is constant review and study of the Mishnah, of the Gemara, of the halachic sefer, the Shulchan Aruch, and the books of Musa, to ensure that we internalize all the details and review, not to forget the subtle points. Constant engagement in Torah study. He says it, constant engagement. Constant engagement doesn't mean stop and start. It means constant engagement. Like the Rosh Yeshiva said, you can't do it because you got to go to work, you have to do another mitzvah. You're constantly engaged because it will re-engage back in the Talmud Torah as soon as you have the chance. Will further enable the person to perceive even matters that are not found in any other sacred writings. In other words, that constant engagement, that showing a desire, the siyata d'shmaya will reveal to you the things that you're looking for, even though they're not spelled out in black and white in text. To attain the kiyas, one must also avoid the factors that detract from the trait, which are the same as those that detract from zahiris. We said preoccupation with worldly matters, levity, taking it too lightly, cynicism, being cynical about what you're doing, and negative peer pressure, right, to pull you away from it. That ends the section in Nikias. And as an adjunct, I just want to read, right, the trait of precious abstinence. He says, although the literal translation of precious is abstinence, we've chosen to translate it because no English word completely captures all of the nuances, right? And he's going to say, before defining the trait of precious, the Ramchal points out a fundamental shift that occurs at this point in the Mesillas Yesharim. In essence, the general subject of the Sefer, that of achieving perfect service of Hashem, can be divided into two distinct parts. Precious is the beginning of the practice of Chasidus, of piety. That's Mashoras Adin, the positive actions wanting to do to stay clean, a positive action to stay clean, a positive action to do the will of God in the world. You should realize that everything we explained in the work up until now, which is Zahiris, Zerizus, and Nikias, right, is what a person needs to become the tzaddik, to become righteous, to make sure he does what's commanded of him. Hasidus is going beyond that. From here on, the focus is on the steps necessary to gain to the level of a pious person, which we will call Hasidus. The blessings will be Zocha to be here and continue this work right in the area of the steps towards Hasidus, to at least finish through it once and then go back and Chazor to Chazorah and involve ourselves with the Mesillas Yesharim again and again and again, and the Sefer of Rebbeinu Yonah in Shari Tshuva, and the other foreign that are available, right, to help us to become better human beings, better Jews, to be the Tzelem Elohim, the light to the nations of the world, and to be the bulwark, the forefront, the leading edge of the human beings in this world with humility that are leading the way to bringing the Mashiach ben David, the house of David, to rule again and to redeem this earth back to the place it was meant to be at the time of Adam and Chava before the sin, right, to experience that taste of the infinite bliss of being one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu.